sheep. Sheep in Vermont. You know, sheep in Vermont go way back. It's part of the economy of this state. In the 1800s, it was an important part of it, as it was for all New England. Wool was a major supplier of money for this new country. And New England was the hub of that activity. So there was lots of sheep, lots of meadows. Today, there's not quite so many meadows because the wool business moved away. The Irish from the potato famine in I think the 1830s came to Vermont and settled in a lot of different places around and had cleared the land and also added to that population of sheep herders and growers and producers of wool. And those of you who've been down to Winooski can see those huge mills along the Winooski River, the Chase Mill and the Winooski Woolen Mill. Those two mills were foremost producers of wool for army blankets during more wars than one. So wool was an important thing. But today the woolen business has moved away, the sheep have moved away, and now we're seeing them move back. So this morning we have a special treat for you. Let me introduce you to Nancy Phillips, who is a teacher at the Warren School. But Nancy does something else besides teach children. She trains dogs who work with sheep. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, Chuck. How are you?
Well, it's a beautiful morning, and it's a beautiful spot as I look here into the valley and look
Thank
at these
you.
and look at these wonderful sheep sleeping away here like it's 9:30 in the morning to
Right.
sleep. Do they usually sleep that long?
What this indicates is that they're fairly happy now. They've been feeding earlier this morning, and so now they're digesting what they have eaten.
Well, I'm sorry, we can't live that well.
Would you like to know a little bit about the kind of sheep I
Yeah,
have?
tell us that.
Yeah, I have a variety of sheep there. I have hair sheep, and hair sheep shed, so you never have to shear them. So their wool is not of any commercial use. And so a hair sheep would be a meat sheep, and typically hair sheep come from hot climates. The other type of sheep I have there is the Dorset, which was it's a very old breed. It's a dual-purpose breed.
I've heard of Dorset sheep, certainly.
For
sure.
meat, for wool, and at one time they were the dairy sheep in Vermont. And so those are the two types of sheep I have there. And the reason for that is, one is I raise my lambs for meat, and the Dorsets give a very nice carcass. And I have the Katahdins, which are the hair sheep. They're a little bit more livelier. They're a very light sheep, and they move very quickly, where the Dorsets are considered a heavy sheep for moving when you have sheepdogs. So that's my purpose in having two different breeds.
Now, which came first, the dogs or the sheep?
Usually it's the sheep, but in my case it was the dog. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I picked up a little border collie thinking that they were very mellow, and someone handed me a book, and I was in for a rude awakening. Border collies, for the most part, do not make good pets. They are a working breed. They're extremely active. They're one of the most intelligent breeds out there, which is a plus and a minus. Whatever they learn, good or bad, they learn very quickly. So you need to be a fairly strong handler, and you need to keep them occupied. The other thing I do to help the breed is I do some border collie rescue work, and so I help border collies that end up in the wrong situation find a new home, and I help match people with an appropriate border collie.
You know, that's probably true of so many dogs too, that people who don't, they think a dog is just something that's kind of fun to have once in a while hanging around
Right.
the house and things like that, and they don't realize that many of these dogs that we see are dogs that have been bred for special purposes. Labradors for hunting and
Right.
retrieving, and all sorts of bird dogs, and terriers for hunting, and coon dogs and beagles. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to see someone who is actually giving the dog a chance to do what it was born to
Right.
do.
Right.
So,
You mentioned bird dogs and things. People might want to know a little bit about the history of the border collie. It's
Sure.
a fairly modern breed. The border collie we see today, that the folks will see in a minute, is only about 100 years old. Collies in general have been around for a long time. In England with the shepherds, they came over with our early ancestors, and they were called a working collie. And they were more as a farmer companion who kept wildlife at bay, and those that had more of a tendency to keep the flock together were probably the ones that were bred more. And in the late 1800s in England, there were two very spectacular collie dogs that really helped the breed. And all modern day border collies ancestry go back to these two dogs. One of the dogs gave the eye, helped give more eye and the gathering quality that the dogs do. The other dog gave the temperament, a much more calmer, not calmer temperament, but more social type of temperament. Some of the lines of border collie are not real social. And those in particular don't make good pets. Other lines are, much friendlier, and I think you've seen that in my dogs here. Some are very eager to come
Yeah,
to
they
you,
are.
and some
Very
are not as eager to come. The other thing is the eye in the border collie. Some people feel that the English setter was also part of a breed that helped develop the border collie, because bird dogs in general kind of have an eye for birds, and I think you can talk more about that. So some feel that the English setter was also added into the breed.
Is that right?
To develop the modern day border collie.
I'll have to tell Babe that story. Babe is my English setter.
Okay. All right.
So, you get the dogs as puppies, and
Actually, I don't. All my dogs are
Right.
rescue dogs.
oh, they're all rescue dogs.
Yes, they are. They're all dogs that needed a home.
Maybe you already said that.
No, I
Yeah,
didn't.
okay.
No, I don't. My first border collie was a puppy, and that's unfortunately she had heart failure when she was very young. But my three now are, well, she came from a pound also. So I'm very committed to rescue, and so every once in a while in rescue we get dogs that are strong working candidates, and I've been very lucky to find two in particular that are quite good, and I've been competing with them.
Boy, they're two lucky dogs. Anyhow, so tell us a little, sort of like, all right, they've been rescued. Obviously, they've been rescued from an unfortunate situation of some kind.
Not necessarily unfortunate, just not the right home.
Just not the right home.
Just
Okay.
not the right home.
So now they've come to Nancy Phillips'
Right,
place.
right.
And what happens?
What happened? Well, it's really helpful to get some obedience training on them. Typically, a border collie is not ready to work sheep until they're about a year old. Some start earlier, some start later. The problem when they're younger is they can't keep up with the sheep. If the sheep challenge the dog at all when they're really young, it can turn a young dog off. Typically, you start in a small field or in a round pen, because the first time the dog goes to sheep, they're pretty excited, and all that obedience training kind of goes out the window. They're very excited. Typically, they work with when they're very young, they'll work with their tail up, which means they're not serious. When you see my dogs today, you'll see that the tail will be down, and that indicates that they're taking their work seriously. And if you ever see it come up out in the field, they're just kicking up their heels a little bit. So you typically start in a round pen, and what you do is you balance, and I think that will be easier shown in the field, but basically you have the sheep in the middle, you're on one side, and the dog is on the other, and you just keep moving around the round pen, keeping the dog on one side, sheep in the middle, and you on the other side. And you don't do a lot of commands, and you just keep balance work, because you want the dog to learn or improve his instinct to bring the sheep to you. The Border Collie is a gathering dog. There are other working breeds that drive the sheep away. By nature, the Border Collie wants to bring the sheep to you. And so by doing this circular work in a pen helps to reinforce that. Once you get a little control on the dog, you might move into a small field, and then you start to teach the dog to do some outruns, which means they leave your feet, run out a little way, and bring the sheep to you. As they develop more, you start to teach the dog to take the sheep away from you. By nature, they don't want to do that. They're, like I said, a gathering dog. They want to bring the sheep to you, so to teach them to move away from the sheep is an uncomfortable position for them. You want to learn to have the dog work far away from you as well as up close. So those are the type of farm chores you want to put into a dog. The other thing that's very unique about Border Collies is they control sheep by their presence and the balance. They balance you and the sheep and the dog. But they use their eye to control sheep, to get the sheep to
They look
move.
the sheep in the eye, kind of?
They kind of look, yes, they do. And they use that, and they're about the only working dog that does that. There are a few others who have some eye, but they don't have quite the eye or the stare that the Border Collie has.
That's very interesting. Tell me, do the dogs perform any protective role in the sheep herding, and do they essentially sleep with them at nighttime or any of that kind of
That's a good
guarding?
question. That's a good question. No, they don't. They are not a guard dog. Matter of fact, it's not a good habit to allow your dog to sit along the fence and watch the sheep all day. Because then the dog thinks sitting here and watching the sheep is working the sheep. As you know, my dogs are off over there. They're not over here. And so I have trained my dogs, even though the sheep are nearby, that they're not to come over here unless I'm here and they work when I tell them to. If I left the dog in with the sheep, it is not a guard dog at all, and it would end up working the sheep, worrying the sheep, putting the sheep through the fence, and just putting a lot of stress on the sheep. So they are not like a guard dog that some people have to protect their flock. That's a different type of breed.
That's a different breed altogether.
Yeah, altogether. There's several.
Yeah. So I
And
suppose
they
if they
actually-
have that sort of a problem they have that kind of a breed then.
You'll notice that most of the guard dogs are white. And some of them kind of actually have hair that looks like, they tend to be rather hairy. And so the sheep see the guard dog as one of them. Border collies that are white have a very hard time working sheep, because the sheep don't see them as a threat. They see that black and white coloration that most border collies are more of a threat.
Well, I think we ought to see these guys go to work here.
All right.
And, I hate to wake the girls up and boys. I guess
I know.
Is there any boys in there?
Yes, there are. There's several.
Okay.
Yes.
The girls and boys up.
Yes.
But anyhow, it's like, wow, it's time they got up anyway, isn't
Yes, it is. All right, Chuck.
it? Okay.
Buster, get back. Get back. 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 Lie down. Abby, that will do. Here. Come out. Come out. Move them up. The sheep are very comfortable with her away. If she was a strange dog, they would move a lot quicker.
Is there any lead sheep or anything like
Yes,
that?
there is. Come by. There. Come by. There. That one there might be a lead sheep.
Uh-huh.
Walk in. Lie down. Lie down. Lie down. So that was fairly orderly.
Wow.
Sometimes it's a real crash and burn scene, and you don't want that, because these are meat sheep. So I'm trying to
Okay.
not work them too hard.
Yeah, you toughen their meat.
Right,
Yeah,
you would
right.
toughen
Sure,
their
I
meat.
got you.
So she did a nice, quiet
Yeah.
job and was very nice to her sheep.
Yeah.
So another task is penning. Penning meaning put the sheep
Putting
into
him into
a
a
pen.
pen.
And it's kind of like playing billiards. And you're trying, or pool. the straight line may not always be the way you get the ball.
Oh, sure, right.
In
so
the
you
hole.
carry 'em.
Yeah, you kind of ping. So you,
Right.
a lot of it's positioning and being able to read your sheep. And you asked me a question earlier about a lead sheep, and there usually is. When you compete in sheepdog trials, you typically have 3 to 5 sheep. And one of the things you want to do early on is pick out which sheep is the lead sheep. Because wherever the head of the lead sheep is where the sheep are going. So you may have 2 sheep looking that way, and the lead sheep is looking that way. As a novice handler, you think they're going that way, and that's where most of the sheep are looking. But if the one over here is the lead sheep, that's where they're going. And if you don't want them to go that way, you then have to position the dog to get that head to turn and go the way you want it. Now the gate should be shut.
Bonnie, come here. Bonnie, come on.
Note that I'm not telling her anything. She knows I'm over here. Lie down. Lie down. Lie down. Lie. Leave it. She wants to cover her sheep. Away. Lie down.
Now, I notice one has a very interesting haircut there. Is that the
That's your
purpose?
that's your hair sheep. And lie down. Lie down. Stay there. Yes, that is your hair sheep. And she hasn't completely shed all of her hair. She doesn't have those. And the other,
That's what I have here. Look at this.
Yeah.
This is what she's shedding then, huh?
That is correct.
I mean, I can't get a sweater out of this?
No,
Oh, well.
it's worthless. Good for the soil.
I'd like to introduce you to Kim Cassens from Warren. And Kim, you have your own dogs and your own sheep.
Yep,
And
I do.
you're out here helping this morning to help us all learn a little bit more about
Yeah.
how
Come
this
over,
all
we
works.
switch farms back and forth to get an experience on different sheep too.
There's a number of you that do that too, aren't there?
There's, I think, about 3 or 4 of us in the valley now.
Yes, I met, who did I meet the last time?
Westcott,
Joyce Westcott, of course, yes.
whose farm you may want to also visit.
Well, that's interesting. You have so many people that are involved with this kind of training of these sheepdog. And you're a long-time resident here.
I've been here all my life.
And I think you told me before that your grandfather would roll over in his
He
grave.
would roll over in his grave if he knew that I had sheep on the dairy farm now. Yep.
Well, anyhow, maybe with the way the economy is going, you're going to bring sheep in where
there
the
we go.
dairy cows
Yep.
were.
Yep, that's what we've done.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's continue on with our training exercise here.
Away, away. Lie down. Lie down. Lie. Now, all I'm doing with a young dog is I'm following her tail. Now, if I walk into her, watch this. I'm going to walk into her head. Note how she goes
yes.
the other way. And with a young dog, you want to develop this ability to keep the sheep to the handler. Now, watch again. I'm going to walk into her. I'm not giving her any commands. Out. She's reading off my body. Border collies read the sheep. They away, away. Note that she will continue until their heads turn. Lie down. Lie down. Lie down. She probably will want to get up again because she feels like she's losing her sheep. But the way we communicate with these dogs is 1 through body positioning, 2 by voice command, and 3 by whistle. And I'm not very good with the whistle. I only have 2 whistle commands, but I'll demonstrate the 2 I have.
Good.
And
Good.
we've lost your sheep. She's been a good girl. Stay there.
Yeah.
When the dog gets a bit better, you send him out on little gathers. Now this is pretty far for a beginner dog, but Abby should be able to do this. Okay, come out.
Okay, now we're
Now
gonna get
Abby's going out to get her sheep. She's going to go out behind them. Lie down. Lie down. Lie down. Abby, lie down. Lie down. She didn't want to take that command. She's a pushy little dog. She thinks she knows more than me, and she probably does. But she was concerned that her sheep were getting away from her. Note that she finally took the command because she felt the sheep were in control. In a sheepdog trial, she really needs to take that command.
and hit the deck right away.
Yes, that's very hard for her. Now I'm gonna, I need to cover my sheep. Away. And our sheep are moving off the hill. So she's out on an away side, counterclockwise. Once these sheep turn, lie down. Note this time she was lie down. It was much easier for her to take that. And she's put lie down. 2 toots on the whistle will make her walk up. We'll see if
She
she'll
liked that idea.
Yes. These sheep are getting a little hot. We may
Yeah.
have to stop. Walk in.
Mm-hmm.
Walk in. She's now driving them. Walk in. Abby's getting hot too. Walk in.
Yeah.
Here, here. Come. Abby. Abby. Come. Lie down. That will do. Good girl. Abby, leave it. Abby, that will do. That's a real challenge for dogs. That will do tells her, stop working your sheep, and I want you to come back to me.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs live to work sheep. This is what they want to do all day. And she's very hot. I'm going to need to put her in some water. But they will work sheep until they drop.
Now, they come with a certain amount of inbred skill to start out with.
Instinct.
Instinct.
My job is to harness it and develop it so we become a working team. Stay there.
That's daunting.
It's very hard. I've been at this about 8 years, and I'm still at the lowest level in competition, but we're making progress.
Great.
We're doing fairly well this year, but the rule of thumb, if you are a competent handler, leave it. It takes 1 year for every leg. They have 4 legs, so to develop a very competent sheepdog takes about 4 years.
Wow.
Some people.
It's a long time in a dog's life.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, 4 years. Some dogs can learn quicker with the right handler. As a novice handler, it takes us a lot longer.
You look pretty professional to me.
A lot of people think that the sheep will automatically follow people. And they will if you have rein and have taught them to follow the rein bucket. But when you want to put sheep in a place where they don't want to go, it's a real challenge, and that's where the dog comes in really handy. It's often very frustrating to move sheep as a person, and the dog plays a real critical role in making farm chores a lot easier. Farm dogs are a little bit easier to train than for competition. Farm chores tend to be a routine, and so the dog learns the routine. It helps if you have some commands and the dog is competent, because then you get a lot more out of your dog. So you can send your dog into a very large field. They'll go along the fence line, find all the sheep, and bring them down to you, which you could spend a long time trying
if
to
it's a
do.
routine, then the sheep are more used to that too. It's
Yes.
nothing new to them.
And they're
they
more-
do it every day or twice a day or whenever.
Right, and they're very comfortable with
Yeah.
that. When you train a border collie for competition, you're training an athlete. And just like people athletes, you need to do it 3 to 5 times a week to
Quite a dedication right
to
there.
develop
Yeah.
that. You only have to work them about 5 or 10 minutes. Any more than that gets very tiring mentally for the dog. And as you saw earlier with the heat and the commands I was giving the dog, they kind of shut down after a while. It's easier for them to work all day because you're not drilling them, and that's a more natural type of activity. When you're training for competition, you're doing various exercises and you're constantly commanding them to do things, and they tire a lot more quickly. Sheepdog trials are very popular now. Originally, they started in England. The first sheepdog trial record we know of is about 1880 in Philadelphia. And it would be the working farmers who would come together as a social activity and see who had the better dog, which helped to develop the breed more. Now, we have a lot of hobby people getting into sheepdog training. We actually have people getting into competition who don't even have sheep, and they have to be even more dedicated.
Simulated sheep.
Well, no, you have to get to farms.
Virtual sheep.
Virtual sheep. That would be nice, but they have a bigger challenge than I do. I can just walk out my door and
Right.
train my sheep. They need to find a place where they can work sheep. Once you make that commitment, working your sheep is not good enough. The sheep get familiar, the field, the pressure in the field is all very familiar. So we're very lucky here in the valley. There are 3 of us who do competition. Kim, who you met earlier, I go to her farm. She has very different sheep from mine. They're very uncomfortable with dogs and people, so they don't come to you. So you have to work your dog very differently. Another place we go to is to Joyce Westcott, who have very biddable
I've
sheep.
met Joyce, yeah.
They're very comfortable sheep around dogs, and she has a very long field, so I often go there and work for long outruns, because in competitions, this is a fairly small field actually. For the top competition, dogs are doing outruns of over 400 yards, meaning you don't see the sheep very well. The level that we compete at, the sheep are at about 100 yards, which is about the length of a football field.
And they're running a lot, and I guess they all get a little tired after a while too,
Yes,
don't they?
they do, and they all need a break. And as you can see, our sheep are feeling a lot more comfortable now. We have some that are laying down, and we have some that are eating, and that's a sign that they're fairly relaxed. And our dogs are quite happy in the shade. They're tired. They're not as wired as they were earlier because mentally they're pooped.
Well, for today, we've got a lot of information on sheep herding and hobby sheepdog training.
Yes,
Right.
it is a hobby.
And it is a hobby, but
My trainer likes this, calls it a craft. He doesn't think it's a sport, and I think I would like to agree with him. It's a craft, and it's a very challenging craft. It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
well, I've been trying to train my English setter
Ah, yes.
to not run away when we go hunting and
Right.
things like that. And I can sympathize with the amount of time you have to put in on that and the frustrations you have to live through. But you're a lot more successful with your sheepdog than I am with my
Well,
English
thank you.
setter.
I appreciate that.
Well, thanks a lot for inviting us here to your farm.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kim. That was just great. It's a tough day to come out, isn't it? Boy, it's hot. It's hot for the sheep, and hot for us too.
Bonnie?
So that's a wrap from up here on Center Facein Road at the Phillips Farm, where we train dogs and we build boats and we just have a good time.